Okay, now we'll start. The time is now 7:14 p.m. on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. And I would like to call this Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force meeting to order. We would like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe and many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As a municipality, Aurora has shared responsibility for the stewardship of this land. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. So to start, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? Moved by Edleen, seconded by Jenny. Any questions or comments on the agenda for today? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, there's no opposed, so that carries. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for today? Perfect. May I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of April 20th, 2022? Moved by Shivanji and seconded by Jenny. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes from last meeting? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Perfect, so that carries. We have no delegations this evening, but we do have some matters for consideration, starting off with the memorandum from the manager of the Aurora Town Square regarding the diversity and inclusion mural design update. So can I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? Moved by Edleen, seconded by Jenny. I guess, Phil, now is your time to jump in. So we look forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Before I begin about this memo, I actually just wanted quickly to, the last time I was here, I was talking about the cultural action plan, and Adeline and Jenny kindly stepped forward and volunteered to be interviewed. So I just wanted to let you both know that it's still on my radar. There's been a few other deadlines and projects I've been working on. So I will be reaching out hopefully in the next little while about that. And I would love to still take you up on that, that kind offer. In terms of tonight's memo, so I'm returning to the task force tonight to bring a memo regarding the diversity and inclusion mural. To give you a little bit of history, this project has been in the works for a number of weeks and months now. September 28th of 2021 is when we actually brought the initial mural design forward. Newer and May were actually on the selection committee for the mural that was sent to council on September 28th. It was called Community Builds Community, and it was by the Moonlight Murals Collective, a trio of Iranian-born women that moved to Canada in their adulthood, and have made a life as artists in the city of Toronto predominantly. But they submitted this beautiful design for consideration, and they were chosen as the winning artists. So tonight, what I am returning to you regarding is the updated mural design that they put forward just a couple weeks ago. It's based on, again, some feedback and some research that was done into Aurora, specifically based on the 2016 census data. So we created, in conversation with the artists, following receiving council approval, to move forward with the design and work with the artists and then come back. So I will be coming back to council, I want to say June, around about a month at a time from now, with the design, seeking approval, and sort of as part of the process of going back to council, reaching out to this task force, because you've been sort of a cornerstone of the project and, pushing it forward. So the latest design is that's here for review. It's based on the 2016 census data, as I mentioned. So we looked at the non-English and non-French speaking populations in Aurora. And we found, I think it was 17. I think the mural says there's 20 quilt patterns. And I said 20 language groups. There was actually 17. And then there was the addition of Anishinaabe population as well. But there were 17 population groups that we looked at. And we took the top ones. If you exclude English and you exclude French, we took the top ones that were spoken in Aurora. And so with that information, the artists did some research and they came up with the revised quilt. And so the design that you see now has the 20 patterns, the repeating patterns, and there's some empty space where there's different colors as well. And each of those patterns are, again, based on the research, and they align or correspond to the language groups that we provided based on the census data. So they also included, if you look at attachment 1, they included a patches list. So each of the patches corresponds to, it's more or less a legend. So, the very first pattern, is Romanian, Hungarian is the second, Japanese, and all the way down. And so tonight what I'm doing is presenting this revised design for the mural for your feedback and your comments. I will share that information. Actually, I have a meeting with the artist tomorrow morning, I believe it is, to share the feedback from this group. I've also been doing some selective sort of consultation with different colleagues and individuals as well. And so I'm going to collectively, and also the sponsor, one of the sponsors for the mural. So I'm going to compile all of the information, share it with the artists. We're going to tweak it again one more time, and then return to council in June for council's feedback and direction as well. So tonight, what I'm looking for is as much feedback as you can provide. If people haven't had a chance to look at it in advance of tonight's meeting and want to correspond with me via email, if they have thoughts or they want to share thoughts now and have second thoughts they want to share via email, I believe Ashita can share that information, my contact information with you. But if you have had a chance to look at the design mural and have any comments, I'd love to hear them right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Does the committee have any questions or comments to share? Jenny?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Phil. I did take a good look at the designs, at the finished concept, and then at the individual patches. I think this concept is incredible. I think the fact that you're focusing on Aurora's demographic particularly is pretty powerful. I love how, despite the different cultures and the the different languages, the overall kind of artistic impression is very much coming together. It doesn't seem disjointed in any way. If I'm making myself understood, like it flows throughout that, throughout all the different identities. I know that you mentioned about the artists researching and consulting people in their network. And in my experience working with Indigenous artists and educators, I just wondered, particularly for the Anishinaabe piece, if that was, if the community was consulted directly for that piece. That's something that comes up in my work quite often. So I just wondered if special attention was paid to that piece in particular.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Jenny. I really appreciate that, the feedback. In terms of the Anishinaabe, I haven't, so again, as I'm saying, I'm meeting with the group tomorrow. One of the questions we have posed to them is to where, the sources for each of the different patterns. So they've told me they've done research, they've given me some initial information, but they haven't given me the full sort of works cited, so to speak. So I will get that information tomorrow, but we also have, recently the town started sort of an internal staff working group called an Indigenous Relations sort of working group. And we've been fortunate enough to have Kim Wheatley, who's an Anishinaabe grandmother, consulting with us. And so one of the things I will be doing at some point is be reaching out to Kim directly as sort of a representative of the Anishinaabe community and just getting her feedback. So right now I can't speak directly to where that came from, but we will be making sure that we vet it properly and it gets the approval of Kim Wheatley.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, something to be mindful of. Any Indigenous partners that I work with in my line of work, they ask to be directly involved in those kinds of projects. So yeah, just something to be mindful of. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Edleen?
Hi, yes, can you hear me? Yeah, so I guess similar to what Jenny talked about, I noticed that there is design for the Philippines, and I am Filipino. And I just wanted to also ask if, representatives from the Filipino community was consulted, because just as first glance, I don't really see anything that would tell me that it's Filipino, just based on like color, symbolism, and things like that. So I just wanted to point that out, as I am Filipino as well. Just wanted to maybe put a note down and would be interested to see if, like Jenny said before, if actual members of the community was consulted.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Edleen. I really appreciate that. And I will do my best to answer that question. And I think that's important for all of the quilt patterns to make sure that they're properly vetted, obviously, with the right community. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the comment that I had was very similar to what Jenny and Edleen were saying. I mean, overall, the design is, I think it's beautiful, and I really like how it all flows together as well. I think there's just definitely, it would be useful to know kind of, or just make sure that community has been consulted in the different designs, just so that they feel that it's reflective of their communities as well. Because I think this is definitely an opportunity for, the mural or for us to make sure that the mural is reflective of community, and when they look at it, they're able to see themselves represented in it. And I'm also wondering if when after the mural is put up and everything, if we're able to have also information and resources on what each of the different patterns represents, and what the inspiration is of it, and how it connects to a specific community. I think that kind of info piece along with the mural would be really great to have as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. So I'm definitely hearing the message about consultation and making sure that we vet each of the designs with the proper community representative in some way. In terms of using the mural after the fact, I think there is an opportunity to use this mural to educate our residents and others about the diversity that is in Aurora. And as I was talking to one of my colleagues about the design, this phrase about more diverse than you think came up. I mean, how many people would know that there's 6 people in Aurora that speak Swahili, according to the 2016, census data. So I think we have the ability to apply things like QR codes on a rotating basis, perhaps, because there's so many different cultural groups that are represented, and then perhaps shining a spotlight on each of the different cultural groups through a corresponding, online component that is kind of linked with a QR code. So I think that's probably something, once we get council approval, or if we get council approval, or what the time frame looks like, I would love to return to this task force with some ideas of what the educational component could be and how we could use it to raise awareness about diversity. But I think that's a really great thing about this mural design. It does allow us to do some, raising of awareness about the different populations we have here in Aurora. So thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think something like that would be amazing. And one point that I also forgot to mention as an addendum to my original comment, is also like mindful of the fact that obviously this is like the artist's like creative interpretation, and like we don't want to stifle that either. So and obviously like engaging in community consultations can also be, you know, like a task in and of itself, because you'll have like conflicting views and everything like that. But I think you know, there is definitely an opportunity to have at least some level of that kind of like cross-checking before we finalize the design. Okay, there's a lot of hands. I think Shivanji's hand was raised first, so I'm gonna let you go first. Oh, you're...
I'm struggling with the mute button, apologies. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So a few little points I want to make. One, I echo what you have said, as well as what Jenny and everybody else is saying, that we do need to consult with the community from each of the representation on the mural, each of the countries. I did look at it, and similar to others, the Indian did not pop up for me to say this is Indian. It says Hindi. There, Hindi is a language, not a country, or you know, not person of a country. Or so I think I don't know if on the mural you're going to put that there. So that's a minor correction as an example. So there's just a couple of things I think it's important that you do get advice. And then I do also want to say that I like your idea, as Phil, that you know, you can do a QR code and have more information available for each of the regions, each of the diversity thing that we're representing. I think that's a great idea. We can tie it to, you know, things like Asia Month, May, I believe is South Asian Month, and then there's different parts, different days throughout the year that we can sort of attach a QR code to it. So that's a great idea. One question: when you reach out to the community, who is the community that you're reaching out to? And that just might be my ignorance, that I don't know who that is. But when you say you will be reaching out to the community, who is that? Like, how are you collecting that feedback?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, and just to add on to the comment that Newer put into the chat. So basically, the quilt patterns are corresponding to language groups and not countries. So the one for Hindi that they've chosen, and again, there will be some follow-up with the artist to figure out how they determined that one. That's actually, so the language groups, I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but language groups are sort of lumped together. So there's a language group called Indo-Iranian Languages. And based on the 2016 data, their census data, there's just over 2,000 people in Aurora that speak Indo-Iranian languages. And among those languages, there's, excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu. Those are 4 examples of those languages. So what they've done is it looks like they've chosen Hindi as sort of representative of that Indo-Iranian language group. So just wanted to clarify that. In terms of your other question, Shivanji, thank you so much. It's a really good question. I guess maybe if anybody here has any feedback in terms of the best way to consult with different representatives or different groups that are here in Aurora, I would love to hear that. I guess I haven't given it as much thought perhaps as I need to, but I think you're correct that choosing one person as a representative or as a stand-in for an entire group can be problematic. So maybe what I'll do is have to give it a little bit more thought in terms of, it'll probably be a matter of research in terms of, you know, what's out there as far as, you know, letting us know and informing us of the patterns that we want to use. And then if there is somebody that we know of that we can, for example, like Kim Wheatley on behalf of the Anishinaabe community, as an elder and as a sort of knowledge keeper and a grandmother, if there's somebody like that we can consult with some, you know, high level of confidence, we will do that. But if anybody from this task force has anybody that they can recommend, certainly I'd be more than happy to reach out to them. So thank you.
Okay, Harold, would you like to go next? You're on mute, Harold.
You think I'd know that by now after 2 years. Great comments around the table. I have similar thoughts, and Phil and your team, I don't envy your task here, because to Shivangi's question about which community groups can you leverage, when you have 20 different cultural groups, it's going to be challenging to be able to leverage, people from each of those 20 groups. And how many people, is 3 enough? Is 3 representative? Is 20 or 50? So you're always going to get, as we found out in the last 2-3 years of our involvement in this task force, that there's always going to be somebody out there that's going to be not satisfied with the end result. So it's going to be challenging. When I saw the mural, I did ask a Filipino friend as well as a Persian friend. I covered up the language or the countries, and I asked them, can you identify which is your country's cultural symbol, or it's affiliated with your heritage or culture? And they both couldn't get it. And so if we were to proceed with this, I know you mentioned, Phil, that you're going to put a QR code. And I think that kind of answers my question, because I was wondering whether when you put it up on the wall, on the side of that building, well, people obviously know just from the basic design, it's kind of representative of a displaying culture. But which culture? I don't think anyone will identify all 20. And so I thought, would it be helpful to actually indicate the country or the culture or the language that it represents? But if you do that, then there's going to be those whose heritage or culture is not represented that may not feel so great about. And so that's a thought that I had, but with everything, you can't satisfy 100% of the people, right? It's really about the end objective, which is to embrace all cultures. So that's my comment. And so I think maybe if we can go back to the community groups and find as many community group people as possible to find a symbol or design that will more readily be reflective, and people will recognize, yes, that's this country, or that's that cultural group, because it's not really that identifiable, which group that these flags or these designs represent. So that's my comment. So I'm not sure whether I'm ready at this point to endorse everything as is, but I think we need to take it back and do some more consultative work before we make it final. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Kim. That's really great feedback. And thanks for vetting it with your, I think you said your Persian and Filipino friends. So I'm clearly hearing that some of these patterns aren't necessarily resonating with some of the communities that are represented. So definitely more work to be done. I will give more thought on the consultation side of things. I feel like perhaps that piece will take a little bit more time, and we want to make sure that we do it right rather than doing it quickly. There isn't any set timetable. I mean, we anticipated that the project would be done this year, but if it doesn't necessarily get done by July, and maybe it's the fall, I mean, that's okay too. We've been working at this for a while now. So yeah, I think and I was going to maybe talk to Ashita maybe offline or clerks and just see if we can maybe come back at the next meeting, knowing that you have one more meeting before the summer break. And if we can, provide some more supplemental information at that time, I think that would be something that I would like to do and maybe work towards. So we'll see if we can do that and make that happen. Otherwise, we'll have to wait and come back at a different time. Thank you.
Jenny?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just adding on, I feel that the fact that you've focused on language as the incentive for the quilt, I think is really meaningful rather than any other component of a person's identity. I think language, can really define a lot of people. I think, hearing everybody, obviously, I cannot contribute in many ways when I look at these patches, but I think in order to make it meaningful through your research, what you could suggest potentially to your artists is, I don't know how your reach is on social media or different channels, but you could present 3 different options for each language, making it clear that it's a language. You're not trying to represent a culture. There's no, there's not necessarily one emblem that's going to represent an entire culture anyway, but give 3 options, let's say on a Google form. And if you can collect some data for, people who may speak that language and, which patch would they like to represent that what they speak. And yes, understanding that it's not going to be a one size fits all kind of situation. But, if your language is represented and we're celebrating your language in our mural, which would be your preferred design? And, that could be a way to reach the community in, maybe a more, far reaching manner. Now, I know that you said your time frame is flexible, so I think that would afford you the opportunity to do that if you weren't against a deadline. And if your artists have already researched some of these symbols or patterns, then, for a little bit of further research and consultation could, add to that and build maybe something to send out and get community feedback on. And I just wanted to clarify the location, because we already have a mural at Yonge and Wellington. Is this on the other side? Or?
Through you, Madam Chair. Originally, it was meant to be on the other intersection, which is the north-facing wall. I think the address is 15242 Yonge Street. So it is. It would be the wall that's facing. Is it BMO? The bank is there. And the dollar store, the Dollarama. For various reasons, that location is no longer viable. And so we're not going to be putting that mural on that location. And we have ongoing conversations with 2 property owners that are still in the downtown core. And both walls have many fewer interruptions, like the doorways and the windows, than the wall that is at Yonge and Wellington. So at this point in time, I can't really speak much more to that because we have ongoing conversations that we haven't wrapped up, but it will remain in the downtown core. That's our goal anyways, in a location that's not far from that intersection.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to know kind of the size-wise what you were dealing with.
Yeah, the size. So again, the 2 walls are of a comparable size. I don't have the dimensions with me right now, but it's quite large. I want to say it's actually probably 40 to 60 feet in terms of length. And then, height is something like 20 or 30 feet, the 2 different ones. So it actually will make quite prominent quite substantial. It'll be an opportunity for, sort of Instagrammable sort of selfie wall, but then you'll be able to actually, see the patterns quite large and be able to actually, see the details in them. That's the goal anyways. So hopefully, even if I do come back at the June meeting, I can hopefully report back a little bit more about the location at that time as well.
I'm really excited to see how this turns out. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate it.
And Adeline?
Hi, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point it out. So my daughters are Cambodian, and I feel like the oldest would be outraged if I don't bring this up. Phil, thanks for clarifying that the relation to the pattern is language. I just wanted to point out that Cambodian is not the language, it's Khmer. So that's Khmer. So if you could maybe write a note about that. I'm sure this is going to go through, rounds and rounds of revision. But I had to say it because otherwise my daughter would probably, she'll be the first to tell you. So just wanted to point it out.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you so much, Adeline. Actually, my girlfriend's from Laos, born in Laos and moved to Canada when she was young. And that's actually in a different language group. They're called Thai Kadai languages, which is Lao and Thai. And it's funny that you said, so Khmer, you said Khmer, right? Is a language group. So based on the 2016 census data, they call them Austro-Asiatic languages. And they do actually list it as Cambodian. So I'll have to go back and just double check. They list it, so Cambodian and Vietnamese are the two languages that I have under as examples. But let me go back and I'll do more research on that as well. And I'll report back, Adeline, on that. So thanks for mentioning that. Thanks.
Are there any other comments from the group? Okay, if there are no further comments, then I will call the vote. All in favor?
Sorry, a quick question through you, Madam Chair. What are we voting for? I'm sorry. Are we voting to pass this? Or
I think we're voting to put the item on the floor for discussion. Is that right, Ishida?
Hi, Madam Chair. So basically what you're voting for is to receive the memo and to refer the comments of the task force back to staff for action, for consideration and action as appropriate. So all of these comments basically will be referred to staff for further action. So that's what the committee is voting for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's a great question. Okay, so all in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you, Phil, for joining us and all of your work.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you so much for your thoughtful comments, and I really appreciate the time you took to review and vet some of the patches. So I will hopefully return in a month's time with some more information. So until then, thanks very much.
Thanks, Phil. Take care. Okay, so next we have our informational item, which is a memorandum from the Recreation Supervisor, special events regarding special event opportunities. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion, please? Moved by Adeline, seconded by Jenny. Okay, so the memorandum regarding special event opportunities is now going to be received for information. Would staff like to speak on the item?
Through you, Madam Chair, there are a variety of special event opportunities throughout the year, and through reviewing our roster to date, we did prepare a memo drawing specifics to our Canada Day festivities, as well as Aurora's multicultural festivities, which I wanted to make or share the awareness with this advisory committee to see if there are, if any of these opportunities align with your focus and what you want to accomplish.
Thank you, Shelley. Does the committee have any questions or comments on the memo that Shelley shared? Jenny, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Shelley. Thank you for joining us. I just wanted to clarify, I read your analysis of the events, and I guess I just wanted to know, are you looking for just to spread the word? Are you looking for us to become more involved? Are you just highlighting some of the activities that are coming up?
Through you, Madam Chair, it might be safe to say all of the above. Many residents know that we do offer a lot of events throughout the year, but given how hard this group has worked through this committee, I wanted to make sure that you're aware of these opportunities. Should they be of interest, we will work with you to support you in participating in them. But first want to open the discussion, to see if there's interest. If there is interest, what elements that I provide in that memo speak to you. It's a very fluid conversation and the degree of participation can also be very fluid as well. But in looking at our roster of events, those just seem like really events that would be aligning with this group. So there's no pressure, there's no expectation. Wanted to open the door, welcome it for further discussion, and or to get the group involved.
Thank you, Shelley. Personally, I do enjoy the Multicultural Festival. I have attended with my family on previous occasions. And that would be something I would gladly become more involved in if you were looking for assistance or ways to connect with the community. I'd definitely be open to collaborating with the town on that one as part of the task force. Can't speak for everyone, just that's me personally.
Through you, Madam Chair. So thank you, Shelley, for sharing your memo and coming out this evening to sharing about Canada Day celebrations and the opportunities at the Multicultural Festival as well. And so, so essentially, Shelley is making available, if I'm interpreting it correctly, space at both those two events for the task force to bring awareness to any cultural or celebrations or anything that we want to bring forward. We have that opportunity, and so I'm personally I'm grateful, Shelley, for bringing this to our attention, and I think we can probably discuss online in terms of everyone's thoughts on it. But the town's made this opening available, and it's available to every group. But she's just making it aware for us at this time. So we can discuss more offline. But if you guys have time and creativity and to make something work at one or both these events, let's hear it. Thank you.
I guess one question that I have, Shelley, is when would you need to know kind of like what are, like if we're going to be kind of contributing as a group to any of the events? Is there like a deadline we should let you know by?
With regards to Canada Day, some deadlines are fairly flexible. It would at least be nice to know by early June if this is something that's really warm on your horizon, so that I can work best with you in terms of how to support you in getting prepared for it. We can provide the infrastructure, such as tables, chairs, those type of things. But I can also work with you on the brainstorming end of it, or share with you some energy to come up with concepts, perhaps how you may want to represent the group in the community zone. With regards to the multicultural festival, deadlines for that are a little bit more firm. With regards specifically, if this group was interested in the facilitation of how we will be celebrating food this year at the festival. If this committee isn't interested in delivering that component, I would be looking at another way of delivering it. That component is going to happen at the festival, but I did want to make you aware of it if it's something that is of interest. And just to further elaborate beyond that memo, with regards to how we're approaching food at the Multicultural Festival, we built a 2 to 5 year business plan on how we'd approach food. So there's one option of pulling in a variety of food vendors or food trucks, which also involves nominal fees, which might not also be suitable for everyone. But when you look at the celebration of cultures and also learning of cultures and showcasing your own culture that you identify with, 3 things are common. One is food, one is movement, and actually one is games in terms of sports reflection. So when we look at the food, we built a plan of taking a global food staple and demonstrating how a variety of cultures celebrate it within their cultural identity. So this year for 2022, we will be celebrating rice. And so we're looking at hopefully showcasing 20 different locations or cultures specific to how they serve, how they put together rice. So for instance, looking at Lebanese rice leaves versus even indigenous wild rice grains versus Mexican rice. It is mind-blowing how many different ways rice is celebrated. And when you look back at what the differences are, quite often it comes back to spices, which comes back to geography, which comes back to landscape in terms of what's available. So we found that by going with this approach, the community is learning more, because we also come up with fact sheets to go with the different samplings. And then, of course, the community gets to sample everything for free. As I say, everything, obviously there has to be a limit to capacities in terms of what we can serve from a physicality perspective. But this is how we've chosen to celebrate food. We have done this back in 2017, 2018, and 2019. And it is so much fun to be a part of it. And it's so much fun to learn about that global staple. And even though you think you know a certain area, it's the learning. And so I would really encourage this committee to maybe really hone in and look at that one, because even if you do choose to use these opportunities as awareness, I also want to make sure the process leading up to it is enjoyable for you, as well as leading it the day of is enjoyable. Because obviously we want you to come back and be able to build upon what you will have accomplished this year.
Thank you, Shelley. Were there any other comments or questions? Okay, so I think it sounds like we'll kind of regroup offline as a team and get back to you, Shelley, with more specifics on commitments and what we're able to contribute. But if there aren't any further comments, I guess I will call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Thanks again, Shelley, for joining us and for giving us the opportunity to participate in these events.
Thank you so much. And if I can say, it has been really enjoyable attending this meeting tonight. And each of you are so well prepared. I learned a lot just with sitting with my camera off and appreciating your discussions. So best wishes for the rest of term of council with this committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Shelley.
Okay, so I think that's all of our items for today. So can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Moved by Edleen, seconded by Jenny. All in favor? Okay, that carries. So